The Seattle Mariners have once again found a way to disappoint me, so now I have to rebuild them. Obviously, as a lifelong fan of the team, I really didn't want to have to make this video, but losing in the fashion that we did to Toronto, I feel like it's only fitting. Before we begin though, I do want to acknowledge that this was the best season of Mariners baseball I've probably ever seen in my life, as I was only 6 months old when they won 116 games. The Mariners were definitely a laughingstock for most of my life, but thanks to the great reset of 2018, they completely shifted their organizational philosophy, drafting players like Logan Gilbert and George Kirby. They went from having the oldest lineup in baseball in 2018 to trading away guys like Robinson Cano and starting from scratch. We've already mentioned Gilbert and Kirby, and they've been essential, but in the same draft as Kirby, the Mariners selected Cal Raleigh in the 3rd round. He is without a doubt the best catcher in baseball and still has a chance to win MVP, although I think it's going to Judge. It was a magical season for Cal, as of course he hit 60 home runs, and as he always does, Julio Rodriguez broke out in the second half of the year. While he always seems to do this, after a very slow start in the first half of the season, I'm really feeling like the 24-year-old finally put it together. These two guys are without a doubt the players we're gonna be rebuilding around as we're trying to win the Mariners a World Series. Now, I've done a lot of rebuilds this year, and usually they're extremely difficult, so you might be curious if it actually makes sense to rebuild a team that finished one win away from the World Series. All things considered, this is a really solid Mariners lineup, although I do want to note that they struggled with strikeouts throughout the season, as they always seem to do. While they're in a good place to win right now though, there's a lot of questions long term. Within the next couple years, players like Randy Arozarena, Eugenio Suarez, Josh Naylor, and JP Crawford are hitting free agency. While some of these guys wouldn't be too expensive to bring back, the Mariners are a draft-developed trade team that notoriously doesn't spend a lot of money on its payroll. That is going to be the challenge of this video, as I'm not rebuilding the Mariners how I want to rebuild them, but instead I'm only making moves that I feel like their front office would actually make. Because the season already happened though, we're simulating all of 2025 and trying to replicate the result the best we can. This season does include the MLB draft though, where I didn't do any scouting, but in true Mariners fashion took a bunch of pitchers. Even though the playoff picture looks a little bit different, the Mariners do make it to the ALCS, where instead of the Blue Jays, they're taking on the Yankees. This will be the starting point of the rebuild, as the Yankees are leading 3-1 and the Mariners are eliminated. That will bring us to the present day, where the Mariners have a lot of decisions to make on free agents, including a couple players like Dylan Moore and Donovan Solano, who were DFA'd in real life. Obviously, they're not going to be coming back, but what about fan favorite Josh Naylor? He is 28 years old with a potential, which is obviously really intriguing, but as far as my opinion goes, while the Mariners really need a first baseman, it seems that Naylor's testing the open market in real life, so I need to stay true to that. A lot of Mariner fans are going to be angry with this decision, but I feel like it's the most realistic, as we tender him the QO. While the Mariners have prioritized drafting and developing, they also make a lot of trades for offensive rentals. Their additions this year were Naylor and former Mariner Eugenio Suarez, but then 2 seasons ago, they also brought in Jorge Polanco. In Seattle, he's most famously known for sending the Mariners to the ALCS, although he did ultimately bounce back in 2025 after being hurt the year before. While we're definitely going to go after Naylor in free agency, Polanco is a bit of a wild card. At 32 years old, he's likely a full-time DH or an emergency second baseman as needed, but as a switch hitter, I would actually really like to see the Mariners bring him back in real life. I don't think that $9.3 million a year is a very good deal, but for a 2-year contract, if they gave him something like this, I think that's actually really fair. While I'm very tempted to do that, I really just don't see Seattle bringing him back, especially with Cole Young waiting in the wings. The former first-round pick in 2022 certainly showed flashes in his rookie season, but ultimately got sent down due to inconsistencies. Due to his contact-first approach though, I really do believe in Cole Young and think he's going to be the guy at second base next year. With 2 of our free agents walking out the door, that leaves only Eugenio Suarez. While he was an absolute monster in Arizona though, his bat really went cold in Seattle, and I think they're just gonna let him walk. With everybody testing the open market, we're just gonna sim to free agency and hope for the best. I do want to note that the Mariners are not usually super active in free agency, especially at the start. However, considering they were 1 win away from making the World Series, I think it does make sense for them to go out and spend some money. As mentioned, we're gonna throw Josh Naylor straight onto our board, but going through the rest of free agency, I just realized realize that there's an issue with Mitch Garver's contract. This $12 million is supposed to be a mutual option, but options are no longer in the game for some reason. Aside from Naylor though, the Mariners also need somebody at DH, and I'm not really sure who that would be. They did really struggle to hit lefties last year, so maybe somebody like Miguel Andujar would make sense, as he is 31 years old and is not asking for a lot of money. He's gonna go on the board along with Jorge Polanco, and I feel like that makes up a pretty good trio. Now that we've offered those contracts, we're gonna just sim to the next week and see what the interest is. But of course, we also have a lot of arbitration money to give out, which could limit our payroll. Now, one of the key players receiving arbitration and the most expensive player receiving arbitration will be Randy Arozarena, and he's another player to keep an eye on for the future as he's 1 year away from free agency. Now, the Mariners did say they want their payroll to come out to around $166 million to start the year, so it does feel like they're willing to spend some money to get back to the ALCS. Just for the case of MLB The Show, I'm gonna go a little bit lower than that though, since some of these contracts are not gonna be super realistic. Simming forward though, as expected, we're gonna have to go into a bidding war for Josh Naylor up against the Yankees and the Marlins. And just like in real life, I'm sure that Naylor would be okay returning to Seattle, although we're gonna need to outbid these teams. I definitely think the Mariners are gonna prioritize trying to re-sign him, but I feel like 5 years for $18 million a year is probably as high as they'll go. We just started this rebuild, but this is a very pivotal moment, and checking the phone, Naylor is going to the Marlins. Just as I fear in real life, it's a really hot market for Naylor, and because of that, there's a really good chance that Seattle will not be bringing him back. With no other good options at first base though, they're gonna have to go elsewhere, and fortunately, Ryan O'Hearn is still available, although it might be too little too late. We're gonna make a run on Ryan O'Hearn, but in the event that the Mariners miss out on their first baseman, they're gonna probably have to make a trade. In my opinion, the best option available is Yandy Diaz from the Rays, who may be 34 years old, but he's still a really good hitter and would be a 1-year rental. Along with Diaz though, another option is Ryan Mountcastle from the Orioles, who hits lefties extremely well. We're gonna keep an eye on both of those players, but first I do want to see what O'Hearn's interest is, and also throw out a contract for Miguel Andujar. Considering his offensive output, I think that a 3-year deal worth around $12 million a year is a good place to start. He would be a really good addition to our lineup, but we also need to focus on third base, where we just lost Eugenio Suarez. I do want to mention that at least in real life, I do believe in Ben Williamson, and believe he could be the guy on opening day for the M's, as he played with the major league club as a rookie and definitely had his moments. He also hit with a ton of power down in Tacoma, so I'm really hoping another offseason can do him well. In this simulation though, we could slide second baseman Ryan Bliss over there, or our #1 prospect Colt Emerson. We're gonna keep an eye out on the third base situation, but now Miguel Andujar is making his decision and does sign with Seattle. As I mentioned, Andujar thrives against lefties, but he also gives us some flexibility in the corner outfield and could also play first base in a pinch. He's gonna be an everyday player in this lineup, and signing him was definitely the right decision. With the addition of Andujar, this is now our projected opening day lineup, although we still have some work to do, mainly getting a better power hitting first baseman, along with getting a third baseman, because we don't currently have one on the roster. While I am interested in someone like Yoan Moncada, we might also need to consider a trade. Missing out on Josh Naylor was extremely unfortunate, but I do believe in Ryan O'Hearn, and we're gonna throw an offer his way. I do want to note that this offseason's trade market at third base is not looking good, as Nolan Arenado is the leading guy, and he's still under a 2-year contract worth $32.5 million a year. Aside from him though, the only guy that I could really see moved is Alec Bohm, who is 29 years old on the Phillies, and that is only because he slumped in the second half of the season. Just because of the market, I think we have to make an offer to Yoan Moncada, who's definitely not the best player, but should keep the Mariners competitive. He is immediately making his decision, and as a lower profile free agent, does sign with the Mariners. That is not a flashy move, but at the very least, he's a switch hitter and should provide some value. There's always the chance for him to be a gem, but with Yoan Moncada, I'm kinda just hoping that he'll be a bridge player, while somebody else develops into our third baseman of the future. Along with him though, we're also throwing out a 3-year deal for Ryan O'Hearn, worth a little more than he's asking for. Unlike with Moncada though, this is gonna be a tougher decision, as we're facing fierce competition from the Yankees, and we're going to the phone. That is really bad news, as he signs with the Yankees for significantly less. We have been robbed by another free agent, and now I feel like we have no choice but to go after Jorge Polanco. Polanco. We got robbed by another first baseman and still don't have a true one on the roster. We offered deals to both Josh Naylor and Ryan O'Hearn and just got declined by both, so I feel like we have no choice now but to make a deal for Yandy Diaz. In order to make this move for Diaz, we're gonna give up a highly regarded catching prospect, along with a former first-round pick in Ty Pede. Missing out on Naylor and O'Hearn was easily our worst nightmare, and I'm really hoping that doesn't happen to the Mariners in real life. Even though we had to give up a bit to get him, I am excited about Yandy Diaz, as he should at least kick the can down the road for what we're gonna do at first base. That should at least be an upgrade over losing Josh Naylor, while Miguel Andujar and Yoan Moncada should be able to at least somewhat replace the production of Suarez. Considering that Eugenio fell off with the Mariners, I don't think that's gonna take much, and we landed who is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated hitters in the free agent class. Then there's Yoan Moncada, who's certainly nothing special. I think he only hit like 235 with the Angels, but he was a lot cheaper than Nolan Arenado and was the best option available. Now for the rest of the offseason, we still have one more roster spot for a position guy, and considering that Jorge Polanco is still here, I'm giving him a 2-year deal worth about $10 million a year. He would give us some depth in the middle infield if Cole Young doesn't work out. That could wrap up the offseason, but I still want to make one more move, bringing in a lefty reliever because the Mariners really only have one. While Gabe Spire is one of the best relief pitchers in the league, we could really use another lefty, and our primary target is former Philadelphia Philly Jose Alvarado. As a former closer, he is a strikeout machine, and I think he'd be a great fit in the Seattle pitching lab. We're giving him a 2-year deal for just under $8 million a year. He would be a great addition, but we are competing with other teams for his services, and he does sign with the Giants. That is the third one of our targets that's gone elsewhere. That is really unfortunate, as now we have to go with our backup option, Gregory Soto. We're giving him 2 years, $6.4 million. With high interest and no competition, he's gonna sign that deal. I'm 100% confident that Mariners fans would actually be pissed if this was their offseason though, so hopefully we can sustain our success and some players surprise us. Even if we're good this year though, there's a lot of players with 1 or 2 years before free agency, which will likely be the biggest challenge in sustaining success with this team. That will make the development of our top prospects even more important, as we're really counting on Cade Anderson, Cole Young, and Colt Emerson. We started out the season on a really good note, winning a series against Baltimore. Through the first couple weeks though, we are 4-5 to start the year. That will take us into scouting, where I think our number one priority has to be getting a first baseman and a third baseman into the farm. Diaz and Moncada are almost certainly not going to be here long term, so we need to figure something else out, and right off the bat, it seems this first base class is pretty solid. We're going to start out by scouting 23-year-old college first baseman Eric Horton, who hits for a ton of power. Back on the field though, I'm really hoping we can get above 500 because we gave up a lot to trade for Yandy Diaz, and I don't want it to go to waste. Julio in the Mariners offense always seems to start slow, but it's a little concerning that Cal Raleigh is also a part of that. Add in the slump from the entire bottom of the lineup, and I'm officially starting to get worried. This also includes our young second baseman Cole Young, who I might have to send down. The 22-year-old has a ton of potential, but so far he's hitting a .22. Now facing the Astros, the Mariners offense really needs to figure it out, but they get swept, losing 6 games in a row. That is an embarrassing performance, as they also lose one to the Rockies, and even though our offseason wasn't the greatest, I don't know what's going on with the offense. It might seem strange to say, but I'm actually not worried just yet, especially because it feels like the Mariners do this every year. For now, we're just gonna continue scouting first and third basemen, and just hope that we can gain back this 6.5 game deficit. Before the end of the month though, we have 2 series against the Angels, who are really not that great, and we start out with the sweep. That might have been what we needed. Seattle would then finish the month on a pretty good note, sitting at 15-17 at the start of May. It seems that Julio and the offense are finally starting to heat up, as JP Crawford has actually been our best player. With 1 year left on his deal, he's doing everything that he can to earn a massive payday. Unfortunately though, looking at other players, it seems the Mariners are continuing their terrible track record of signing hitters. All 3 of Yandy Diaz, Yoan Moncada, and Miguel Andujar are greatly underperforming and really need to turn things around. As a lifelong fan of this team, I'm actually kind of impressed that we've managed to create a realistic simulation in MLB The Show. That will continue further as we're 5 games behind the Astros. Ironically, one of the guys most Mariners fans want off the team is JP Crawford, and he's currently in 3rd place for MVP. That is the crazy world that we're living in right now, as he's also also second for the batting title, only behind Mariner cursor Yordan Alvarez. Then checking out the Cy Young Award, the Tigers have two guys in the top three, with Tarek Skubal at number 1, although I'm just seeing now that in our simulated season, Logan Gilbert won it last year. That is a very big deal for this rotation, as that was the Mariners' first Cy Young Award and probably their first major award winner ever since Felix Hernandez won the same award. I would love to keep Logan Gilbert, but he has 1 year remaining of arbitration before this, and with the Cy Young, he is not going to be cheap to bring back. That means we could be replacing him and Luis Castillo within the next couple years, and currently we only have Cade Anderson waiting in the wings. Thanks to the rotation though, the Mariners just keep on winning as they take another series against Boston and Texas. Then sure enough, simming to the end of the month, they are 1 game back from Houston. It took a while for them to figure things out, but it seems the offense is finally gelling, with Miguel Andujar starting to heat up, along with Yandy Diaz, who's broken out as the player we thought he was gonna be. Then as for the returning players, Cal Raleigh's definitely seen a bit of a downtick in home runs, but I certainly don't expect him to hit 60 every single season. Add in the very rare good start to the season for Julio, and JP Crawford continuing to put up good numbers, and this Mariner team is looking a lot better than it was at the beginning of the season. Maybe the most encouraging development of the year though is that Cole Young is starting to heat up, and that's going to be one to keep an eye on. I really don't want to send him down and replace him with Jorge Polanco, so I really hope this continues. Then in the rotation, Logan Gilbert and Bryce Miller are once again looking like themselves, while George Kirby might be a Cy Young dark horse. We've clawed our way back in the division, but now we're taking on the Yankees and the Philadelphia Phillies. Unfortunately, our long series winning streak comes to an end as we lose 2 out of 3 to Philadelphia, but do rebound against Kansas City. The Mariners have relied on their pitching the whole way through, but it seems to be paying off as they take the division lead. Now at the start of July though, we're taking on the Dodgers, followed by 2 teams in our divisions, including a 4-game series against the Astros. We have a 1.5 game lead going into this series against the Astros, and I'm expecting nothing short of an electric series between the top 2 run-scoring offenses in baseball. This has been a complete 180 for the Mariners, as the signing of Yandy Diaz is proving to be genius. Not only that, but Yohan Moncada is actually playing serviceable third base, while Miguel Andujar is starting to heat up. There is so much at stake right now, because if we lose this series, we're gonna fall behind Houston as we lose the first 2 games before going on to win the third. Seattle has to win this game to stay in first place, and they do exactly that with another narrow victory. That should definitely keep us in the lead at the All-Star break, but before we can even get there, it is time for the MLB draft. Now, usually in the MLB draft, because of how long it takes for players to develop, you're not usually drafting for need, but this year's kind of an exception. The player I'm hoping to take at number 27 is third baseman Caden Crane, not only because he's the best position guy on the board at this spot, but also because we really need a third baseman. Yohan Moncada is only signed to a 2-year deal, so we need somebody else in the system, but in the event that we don't get him, I'm looking at first baseman Eric Horton. After getting rejected by both Josh Naylor and Ryan O'Hearn, we could really use a first baseman in the system, and even though he's not as good as Tim Horton, Eric Horton should be a good alternative. Regardless of what college infielder we draft, I'm pretty confident we're going to be getting a stud, and simming to our next selection, the Dodgers take our guy right in front of us. I have lost track of how many times this has happened to me in the show, especially with really good teams like the Dodgers. That's a bit of a bummer, but I still believe in Eric Horton, and we'll be taking the first baseman right here. Because he's 23 years old, his draft rank goes down a little bit when scouting him, but he is guaranteed to have a good ceiling and is overall a very safe pick. Then with our next selection, I was targeting another third baseman in Chase McClain, and the Dodgers did it again. You cannot convince me that they didn't double up at third baseman just to piss me off. Thankfully for us though, my third favorite third baseman is still on the board in Ralph Williams, and while I'm not sure if his ceiling's gonna be too high, he is a switch hitter and is worth taking a flyer on. Then simming to our next selection, it looks like our board is still pretty much intact. With lots of talent available and not a lot of needs, I'm gonna take the next highest projected player on the board, which will be a catcher. We already have Cal Raleigh and Harry Ford, but I can't help taking the best guy available. Thankfully for us though, the Mariners have another top 100 pick, and we're gonna utilize that, taking the best overall player on the board. Not only is Lewis Pace looking like an absolute animal, but he's an infielder with a very high ceiling. That is another good selection for us, and simming to the third round, Julio Castro Castro looks like a hit. We take him, followed by Edwin Yamaguchi. Now in the 5th round though, there's only one more player on my board after the Dodgers took another infielder that I'm interested in. That will force me to take a flyer with my final selection as we end the draft off with a starting pitcher. Someone in the organization clearly gave the Dodgers our draft notes, but I can't really complain since we're in first place at the deadline. But I can't really complain since we're in first place at the break. The new and improved offense continues doing its thing as we seriously need to consider re-signing Yandy Diaz. I know he's starting to regress, but he's such a good hitter and probably won't be commanding that much money. As for the rest of the offense though, Cal, Julio, and JP continue doing their thing, while Randy Arozarena has very much disappointed despite being 88 overall. Then it's kind of the same story for Miguel Andujar, who I was expecting better things from, as he has not even been as good as Yoan Moncada. Then in the rotation, I am pleased to say that everybody has stayed healthy up to this point, which is more than I could ever ask for. Additionally, we had several more guys make the All-Star game, like Brian Wu, Andres Munoz, and Cal Raleigh, along with Yandy Diaz, JP Crawford, and Julio Rodriguez. That is a lot of representation, and you'll love to see it. Simming to the deadline at the end of the month, we are half a game back from Houston and definitely need to make a move. While JP Crawford is currently injured, the lineup looks something like this, as Luke Raley has replaced Randy Arozarena, who is struggling a bit against righties. But going all the way down to the bottom of the lineup, you can see that Cole Young has been struggling throughout the season. While he's been getting great development, it's been an up and down season offensively, and I would be willing to trade for somebody else at second base. I feel like all we need is a one-year rental to play second base while Cole Young continues to develop, and just a crazy idea, but someone like super utility Brendan Donovan from the Cardinals would be perfect. Not only does he absolutely rake against righties, but he can play all over the field, and with a year and a half left before free agency, he would be a great fit for the team. This is naturally going to cost us some really good prospects, but I feel like getting a player of Donovan's caliber is absolutely worth it. I'm throwing in two of the Mariners' many top 100 prospects in Michael Arroyo and Robert Roosh, along with a 19-year-old center fielder, which will not get it done. If we want to make this work, it seems we're going to have to give up a slightly better pitcher than Roosh, so now I'm curious what it's going to take. I'm throwing in Archie Castilla, but while it's certainly a high price to pay, pitchers grow on trees in Seattle, so I feel like this is worth it. We are making this move. Make no mistake, I still believe in Cole Young, but fans want to win now, and sometimes this is the price you have to pay. Brendan Donovan's getting plugged straight into the lineup, and Yoan Moncada will now bat 9th. Donovan actually really works out because he's one of the players I would like to see the Mariners try to trade for in real life. Just a really good all-around ball player. The other great thing about him is he can play shortstop, which is where he is right now due to JP's injury, but considering that this is likely JP's last year in Seattle, maybe Donovan slides over there next year and we bring Cole Young back up. We're gonna find out if that addition is good enough to win the Mariners the division, but for now, because it's the start of August, we can view our draft picks. This draft started out on a really discouraging note, but it seems like we recovered and put together a really nice draft class. Starting at the very top, we have power-hitting first baseman Eric Horton, and while the contact and the plate skills certainly need work, you cannot deny raw power like that. 62 overall is a little bit low for a 23-year-old, but with 92 potential, I'm very excited about his future. Of course though, I do have to mention the Dodgers, who took not one, not two, but 3 infielders that I was targeting, and as a result, we could not draft our third baseman. While I'm definitely fine that we ended up with Horton, the guy that we wanted with our second selection ended up being way better than Ralph Williams. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and Ralph Williams is just a bit of an underwhelming player. With 86 potential and 51 overall, he's gonna be in the minors for a very long time. That's a bit of a bummer, but the same cannot be said with our next 2 selections, as we absolutely crushed it. Starting off, we took the best player available, which ended up being a 98 potential catcher in Nolan Bacara, and with Cal Raleigh and Harry Ford, I hate to offend Brewers fans, but the Mariners might be becoming a catcher factory. I am very excited about Bacara's future, along with Lewis Pace, who's 97 potential. We struck gold with both of those selections before going back a little bit with Julio Castro. Even though I say that though, he's still 89 potential and definitely not a wasted selection. Then to close the draft, we got 2 more quality players, along with a throw-in random flyer on a starting pitcher. All I'm gonna say is, aside from the last player, the worst pick of this class was the third baseman, but just imagine if we ended up with Chase McLean. It would have been perfect. After trading away several prospects for Brendan Donovan, we needed a refuel, and we got exactly that as we're simming the month of August. However, near the end of the month, we do have a huge series against the Astro that will once again have very high stakes. Coming into the series, we have a 4-game lead in the West, and it seems the addition of Brendan Donovan is making a difference. One of the big reasons the Mariners won the West in real life was a series against the Astros that they swept, but unfortunately it did not go that way this time. Fortunately though, we did rally from behind to take Game 2, and now simming Game 3, we do win. That is going to put us 5 games up on them, and with the American League's best record at the start of September, it's going to take a lot for them to not make the playoffs. Then another good month secures them their first 100-win season since 2001. It may have took 25 years, but the Seattle Mariners finally won 100 games and ended up finishing with the best record in all of baseball. This was a big year for the offense as Cal Raleigh didn't quite hit 60 bombs, but did have 50. That is quite respectable as Julio Rodriguez also secured a 30-30 season. Stealing bases and hitting nukes is one of the things that makes him such a special player, as Yandy Diaz and Yoan Moncada also had 29 apiece. After losing Naylor and Suarez during the offseason, we brought in 3 guys that combined for over 70 home runs and over 270 RBIs. It is fair to say that we put together an elite offseason, and that's probably the biggest reason that we won so many games. However, it was our big move this year that might have gelled the entire offense together, as our decision to trade for Brendan Donovan was extremely aggressive, but seemed to be the move that gelled everything together. He was one of 7 total players on the team that hit 20 home runs or more. This resulted in Seattle's offense finishing first in MLB in runs and second in hits. Then on top of that, add in baseball's best rotation with now 99 overall Bryan Woo and one of the best closers in the game, and we have a complete team. We might have just completed this rebuild in 1 season, but now we have to take on the Astros. Before we get there though, I completely missed this. Cal Raleigh was the American League MVP, and apparently he also won it through simulation last year. That is a huge honor for Big Dumper, as Bryan Woo came in second for the Cy Young, and naturally Cal also took home the Hank Aaron Award. I do want to point out that after how bad last offseason started, losing Josh Naylor and then getting outbid by Ryan O'Hearn, the fact that we just had the best record in baseball is kind of incredible. However, now we're facing the Astros where anything can happen. After a Brendan Donovan RBI though, Game 1 is all tied up at 1 apiece, and Hunter Brown and Bryan Woo are absolutely dueling. However, now in the 6th inning, their Y Diaz scores 2 runs, while Yandy has not done anything. I think I can speak for all Mariners fans when I say that the ALDS against the Astros is not a fun place to be, as Bryan Woo crapped the bed, and that is not the way that we wanted to start out. The offense only scored 1 run on 4 hits, and the top of the lineup did not do anything. That is going to make Game 2 a must-win for Logan Gilbert, and there's a ton of pressure on this offense to succeed. Immediately after leaving 2 guys on base though, there's a solo shot from the Astros, although here comes Yandy. He is able to tie it up, and now the top of the lineup needs to do something. They strand 2 guys. That is unbelievable, but we are still holding this down at 1 run apiece, and with a second chance, Julio Rodriguez and Cal go back to back. Right after they beat us 4-1, we come back with a 4-1 victory of our own. Unlike in the first game, the top of the lineup showed up when it mattered, and a huge shout out to Logan Gilbert going 8 innings. That is absurd for the playoffs. I'm definitely a lot more confident as we go on the road to Houston with 2 road games in a row. The insane depth of our rotation makes us a nightmare to face, and Julio Rodriguez is suddenly cooking. Add in an RBI walk from Andujar, and we are leading 2-0 with George Kirby putting in some work. Then a Rosarena goes deep in a contract year, and this offense is suddenly looking like what we expected. With George Kirby on the mound, we win this game 11-0, and after a pretty rough start to the series, we are 1 game away from making it back to the LCS. I think I speak for all Mariners fans when I say that winning this series in Houston would be the ultimate redemption. Everyone's going to talk about George Springer's home run, but Yordan Alvarez's has also been on repeat in my head for quite a while. Unfortunately for us though, Luis Castillo starts out on a really bad note, giving up a 2-run 2-run shot, followed by 4 more runs. We might have just thrown the game away, as it is 8-5 in the 7th inning, and Christian Walker's gonna not keep it close. Right after Seattle's 11 runs, the Astros stay alive, scoring 13, and thanks to Luis Castillo, we're going to a winner-takes-all Game 5. Fortunately, we're gonna be back in Seattle, but this is not where we want to be against our bitter rival. With Bryce Miller scheduled to make the start though, we're gonna go back to Bryan Woo and put our season in his hands. He did not perform well in game number 1, so we need him to step up with everything on the line. Guys like Randy Arozarena and JP Crawford are free agents after the year, so this could be now or never. Fortunately for us though, Woo is shutting them down with a perfect game so far, but immediately gives up a home run. Then on top of that, Seattle's offense can just not get anything going, and unfortunately, history's looking to repeat itself, but there's the big dumper. The MVP is gonna keep our season alive, and Dominic Canzone puts us up 2-1. Right as I say that though, the Astros come back with the 4th dinger of the game, so we are going to the 9th inning looking to stay alive. Fortunately, Munoz is able to get out of a jam, so Seattle can walk it off, but we're going to the 10th. This is reminding me so much of the game against the Tigers, and our season might be on the line. That is a heartbreaking 10th inning home run given up by Andres Munoz, where Hader puts us away. In Seattle, the Astros have won the ALDS, and even though the Mariners had the best record in baseball, they choke in the playoffs and are back to the drawing board. The Mariners were the best team in baseball during the regular season, but like I told you guys before, I'm trying to make this as realistic as possible, and in some nihilistic, jaded way, I feel like this was as realistic as it can get. We went all in on this season just to be first-round exits, and now we're faced with a ton of tough decisions during the offseason. Simming to the end of the year, the Red Sox are World Series champions, bringing one back to the American League. By some weird logic, they still have Roman Anthony sitting in AAA, which I honestly don't understand. Maybe it's because Jarren Duran's in front of him, but you'd think that they'd bring up a 90 overall 22-year-old. That's kind of ridiculous. Either way, this is a really good young Red Sox team with a ton of talent, and along with the Astros, they might be our biggest competition to win a pennant. If you thought that last offseason was important, you were in for a surprise, because this one might be even worse. An offense that was first in the league in runs scored is losing 3 key starters along with a platoon bench bat. An offense that was first in the entire MLB in runs is losing 3 key starters along with a quality platoon bat in Victor Robles. Just to give you guys an idea of how much this is gonna cost, starting at the bottom with the worst player, he's asking for $16 million a year. After the season that JP Crawford had, Robles will definitely not be coming back, along with Randy Arozarena, as he just kinda underperformed, and he's asking for over $20 million a year. As for Yandy and JP though, they're both guys that I'd want back, but Crawford is probably more likely to test the open market. After having the best offensive season of his career at 31 years old, he's looking for probably one more big payday before he retires, so there's pretty much no reason he wouldn't test the open market. I love JP Crawford, and it'd be great to get him back, especially after last season, but just being realistic, we're gonna tender him the QO and then try to bid on him in free agency. Then, even though we're letting him walk, I'm gonna do the same thing with Randy Arozarena, because we can earn a draft pick if he signs with another team. Then for Yandy Diaz, he may be 35 years old, but after finishing with a career high in both home runs and RBIs, we're gonna do the same thing as we did with JP. Just let him test the open market, and if it's reasonable, we'll bring him back as well. Simming to free agency, there's no surprise that JP is the best shortstop available and the number 7 player in the class. Then looking at the first baseman though, we absolutely need somebody, and I still think Yandy is the best option. With so many guys hitting arbitration, we're not gonna have money for Tarek Skubal, but just note that he did hit the open market, so somebody's gonna be picking up the now 2-time Cy Young winner. Losing JP Crawford would put a huge hole in the lineup, but after adding him to the board, he is not interested in coming back. He's been in Seattle for most of his career, but apparently 2 playoff losses to the Astros were more than enough for him to want a change of scenery. I don't know what we're gonna do about that, but we need to figure it out, because right now we have 3 holes in the top 6 spots of our lineup. As far as trade options go, I'm not really seeing anything on rebuilding teams that actually makes sense, and after making so many trades, we don't really have the resources to make a blockbuster deal for somebody like Gunnar Henderson. I know that might not seem seem like a realistic suggestion, but he's probably not going to re-sign with Baltimore, and they've been pretty bad the last couple years. As for other rebuilding teams with infielders, I do like CJ Abrams, although he's kind of underperformed the last couple years. He would also be demanding a really high package though, so I just don't think it's worth it. Just because of that, I think my biggest trade target is Luis Garcia, and if we did trade for him, he would play second base and allow Brendan Donovan to slide over to short. Once again though, he would be another rental, so I'd really prefer to resign JP. With the future of the infield not looking certain, I want to make sure we get a return on the investment for Brendan Donovan, as I'm offering him a 5-year, $100 million extension. As a great hitter with the ability to play pretty much anywhere, I feel like that is a plug-and-play player you need to have on your team. Also, with so many of our young pitchers in arbitration, I am interested in extending one of them, although looking at the number for Logan Gilbert, who hits free agency next season, it is going to be way out of our price range. Winning a Cy Young 2 years ago really drove up his value, and it's going to be the same story with Brian Wu, who may be a little further away, but is still going to be really expensive. Then adding in my personal opinion that George Kirby hates Seattle and wants to be gone as soon as possible, the only viable option is Bryce Miller. As our 5th starter, this is actually a really affordable deal, but considering that he still has 3 years of arbitration left, I think I'm gonna hold off. Due to Crawford's lack of interest, I think we're just gonna let him walk, but I do want to offer a 1-year deal to Yandy Diaz. Then we're also losing Randy Arozarena and Victor Robles, but considering that both of our players are at the top of their positions, I think that says a lot about this class. In order to get a corner outfielder, we're likely gonna have to make another trade, and I do like Luis Robert Jr. He's been stuck on a really bad White Sox team for a while and has turned his numbers around. Additionally, with 1 year left on his deal, I think this makes a lot of sense. While I am interested in making that happen, the price might be a little too high for what it's worth, especially with Taylor Ward sitting in free agency. Between the two of them, Ward has definitely been the better player, and I'm curious if he'd be interested in signing. At least in my opinion, he would be an upgrade over Randy Arozarena and is asking for $7 million per year less. I think that's a no-brainer. Assuming we don't get JP Crawford back though, I am fully comfortable giving the reins to Cole Young, and at 85 overall, I really hope that he's ready. Immediately, Yandy Diaz is making his decision and will sign back with the Mariners. No drama there. That signing is gonna only leave Taylor Ward, who we just barely have enough money to sign. After signing this deal, we're gonna have $100K left in the payroll, and there it is. We acquire Ward for 3 years at $15.5 million a year, so it's fair to say that this offseason is done. I don't think I've ever stretched my payroll that close in MLB The Show, but it looks like it's gonna pay off. Coming into the season, we are the number 2 ranked team in baseball, and we're number 1 in contact. Now I'm just hoping that it converts on the field though, because as you can see, our lineup is absolutely loaded, although Yandy Diaz is starting to regress. That is not a surprise at 35 years old, but I'm just hoping we can get one more good year out of him. Then in the back of the lineup, we have new additions Taylor Ward and Cole Young, with Jorge Polanco as the DH. Not only is this Mariners team about the best version of itself possible, but we also have an elite farm system led by the number 3 prospect in baseball, catcher Nolan Bacara. Then at number 12, there's Cade Anderson, who could be at the show right now, but considering that Luis Castillo's in the last year of his deal, there's not really a spot in our rotation until next year. More than likely, I think the move would be to call him up sometime in June to manipulate his service time, and he'll be a pretty good replacement for Emerson Hancock. Even after all of the trades, Bacara and Cade Anderson are 2 of 11 top 100 guys, so it's fair to say that we've done a good job of rebuilding the farm system. That's also not even including a host of potential guys who didn't even make the top 100. We are starting the series off with the Atlanta Braves, and we swept a team that made the World Series. You could not ask for a much better start to the year than that, but now we're taking on the Dodgers, who sweep us. Whatever team we face in the World Series is going to give us a huge problem, as the American League is much weaker than the National League, as we are 5-3 coming into our first week of scouting, where we have a ton of draft picks. Losing Crawford and Randy Arozarena gives us 5 top 100 selections and 6 in the top 103. That is ridiculous for a farm system that is already absolutely loaded. I think if this franchise went for like 10 years, we would probably win 5 or 6 World Series, and that's just being realistic. It took us a while to get going, but we're 10-4 2 weeks into the season, as despite losing a couple key players, the offense is off to a very fast start, with Cal and Julio doing their thing. In addition to that though, new addition Taylor Ward is proving to be an elite signing, leading the team in RBIs. I don't know how long this rebuild's gonna last, but I'm gonna do whatever I can to make this farm as overpowered as possible, scouting a couple second basemen to start things off. Even at 10-4, we have competition from the Astros, who were only one game behind us the last time I checked, and of course, we really want revenge after what happened last year. With the electric start to the season, I think the question on my mind is, can they win 116? At 20-6 near the end of April, they're actually on pace to do that. We're gonna see if we can stay on 116 win pace, although splitting a series against the Athletics doesn't help. Despite winning a ton of games, we're still behind pace for the win record, and that really just shows how untouchable that record feels. On the scouting end of things, we're continuing to look at pitchers, along with a few position guys, and I found a player with an S-tier name in Milton Mars. That's gotta be one of the best names I've ever heard. This man's got franchise third baseman written all over him, although he's definitely gonna be pretty raw. Then at the start of July, we're on similar pace, but would still be short of 116. All things considered though, I'm actually kinda surprised we're on this pace, as several of our offensive players are on cold streaks. As always, the exception to this is Cal Raleigh, and it is good to see Cole Young having a bounce back and, dare I say, breakout year. He is up to 88 overall and improving rapidly, so it seems we made the right decision moving on from JP Crawford, especially because we didn't have money for him. We literally could not afford him. Then once again, the rotation has been as elite as ever, with Wu, Gilbert, Miller, George Kirby, and Luis Castillo all playing at a pretty high level. Then in the bullpen, Emerson Hancock is still a solid long reliever, while Matt Brash and Carlos Vargas have been very good, along with Gregory Santos. If there's anybody on the team I'm concerned about though, it is Gregory Soto, who's putting up miserable numbers. In most other years, I would keep him on the roster, but because we're trying to be competitive, I'm gonna DFA him and try to outright him to AAA. He could always come up later, but for now, I think the best move is to bring up Cade Anderson from AAA. He's gonna replace Gregory Soto as a much needed left-handed pitcher, as Greg Spire is the only other guy. Hopefully that move sets us up for success as we're simming to the All-Star break, and at this point in the rebuild, I'm gonna make this a very quick draft, although my favorite player got taken at number 1. While that is a major shocker, I guess it goes to show that he was gonna be pretty good. That would have been fine, but at number 2, Kansas City took my backup option, so this draft is already off to a really bad start. With 5 picks in the top 100, I'm going extremely starting pitcher heavy at the top, just to stay safe, but I did find a really good first baseman in Carlos Baez, so at least we're gonna get a couple position guys. We're just gonna sim to the All-Star break, where we're 67-29. That will put us a very solid 20 games in front of Houston, and I'm actually kinda bummed that we might not get revenge against them in the playoffs. After so much pain against them in the ALDS, I would like nothing more to beat them at their best, but it seems they've kinda fallen off. On the other hand though, Cal Raleigh is carrying the offense and looks like he could win the MVP. This would be his 3rd MVP in a row, pretty much cementing him as the best catcher of all time, and there it is, he's in the lead. With Junior Caminero on his heels though, he needs a big second half if he does want a three-peat. Cal is not only the frontrunner for the MVP though, but also the batting title, which is something I don't think we'll ever see. We're living in a very twisted reality where Cal doesn't hit 240, and the Mariners are first in the MLB in batting average. Along with that though, they are second in the league in runs, and also rank 3rd in the league in ERA. Just a dominant performance all around. As you would expect for the best team in baseball, they have a few players in the All-Star game, starting with the obvious ones in Wu and Raleigh, although I'm not seeing anybody else. Maybe we'll see Julio in center field, we do, but that's gonna round it out. Only those 3 guys. We're approaching the deadline, we're approaching the trade deadline, and honestly this year, I don't really think we need anything. Aside from a few players on cold streaks, this team's about as complete as it's gonna get, and I feel like our best move is to just surge forward and hope for the best. If anything, maybe we could use a lefty leverage reliever, and Brian Hudson would be a really good fit. As always, the White Sox are looking to sell, and it would not cost very much to get Hudson. That's a no-brainer. I know that might not seem like a big move for the bullpen, but I promise you, with Gabe Spire in the final year of his contract, we need all the help we can get in terms of lefties. Even with a new reliever though, I feel like the dream of 116 wins is dead, as we simply lost too many games in July, but looking at this draft class, we continue to build on the strongest organization in baseball. That's all I have to say. Just to make a point, I'm gonna go by our roster and and sort by potential and just look at how many A and B potential guys there are on the roster. We are not only trying to win World Series with this core, but to build a juggernaut that can sustain itself over 10 to 15 years. This rebuild started out with me kind of panicking about losing Josh Naylor, Suarez, and then missing out on Ryan O'Hearn. In hindsight though, it hasn't really mattered as Taylor Ward, Yohan Moncada, and Yandy Diaz are playing great baseball. Then on top of that though, another one of the players we took in year one of free agency, Miguel Andujar, is also raking. At this point in the year, we've done everything that we possibly can, and all we can do is sit back and just hope we win the World Series. At the start of September, they are 97-42 and have already clinched the division. That is insane. We could literally lose every single game the rest of the season and probably still be the #1 seed in the American League, which just goes to show how ridiculous of a season this was. Seattle would finish 111-51, and we're about to find out if Cal Raleigh won a third MVP. He is continuing his mission to become the greatest catcher of all time, but there's no way. One of his division rivals, Kurtz, comes out of nowhere and sweeps the award. To be fair, it seems the dumper fell off a little bit in the second half, while Kurtz only got better, and with a .324 batting average, he won the batting title and basically did what we were hoping Big Dumper would do. That is a well-deserved MVP from Nick Kurtz, and then for the Cy Young, Bryan Woo was also a runner-up. He finishes second in the award for the second straight year, and it looks like we didn't have anything else. Despite our improvement in wins on the season, I feel like the offense definitely fell off a little bit, as Cal did not hit 50 home runs, and Julio didn't have a 30-30 season. On top of that, we had several guys with 30 home runs and 100 RBIs, where this season, Cal was the only guy. We did get some really good production from new addition Taylor Ward, along with Yohan Moncada and Yandy Diaz as always. I'm also very excited that a large part of the offense finished the year on a hot streak, and hopefully they can carry that into the playoffs. As always though, I do have to give a shout out to this rotation, which was once again electric. They were without a doubt the biggest reason we won 111 games, with Bryan Woo placing second in the Cy Young, and we still have the former Cy Young Logan Gilbert. Then on top of that, our 3, 4, and 5 starters were all cooking, while Cade Anderson's still getting his feet wet. Then if it couldn't get any better, this bullpen was absolutely ridiculous, and it would be criminal if we didn't make a deep run. And I don't want to jinx anything, but this feels like our year to win a World Series. After 2 years of painful playoff losses in a row, all the pressure is on the Mariners, especially because Logan Gilbert, Luis Castillo, Gabe Spire, and then Moncada and Diaz are all hitting free agency. We have to win a World Series. I have no idea what teams made the playoffs, but we're facing the Yankees in the ALDS. That sounds about right. 34-year-old Aaron Judge is looking to win his first ring before he either retires or starts regressing, and this is a very well-rounded Yankees team with young guys like Volpe, Dominguez, and Spencer Jones all developing. After the pain of the past 5 years and really their entire franchise history, the Mariners really deserve a World Series, but this series at home is not off to a good start as Bryan Woo for some reason is stinking it up. Cover your eyes, New York just beat us 11-4. Just like game 1 in the ALDS last year, Bryan Woo really lets us down, and now we could be in trouble as a result. In a contract year, nobody deserves a World Series more than Logan Gilbert, and he is showing us just how bad he wants it as the Mariners load the bases and score 4 runs. That might have been all we needed to get back on the right track, as they have their second straight 4-run inning, because now we're going on the road to New York where George Kirby's on the mound against Carlos Rodon and gets a 9-7 win. I'm glad we have the lead, but for a team with such good pitching, the Mariners have been giving up a lot of runs, but fortunately in this game 4, Raleigh strikes first with a 3-run bomb before they score another. That is going to give us a really solid cushion with Luis Castillo on the mound, and what happened? That's a 3-run shot. We were so close to not forcing game 5, but the Yankees come out of nowhere, although Moncada, thank you. It is 8-7 Yankees going into the 9th inning, where we desperately need something, and they strike out the side. That means just like last year, the series is coming back to Seattle for game 5. This game is trying everything that it can for history to repeat itself, and we need to break through. New York broke through Bryan Woo in game 1, but it has to be our best versus their best, especially after he was a runner-up for the Cy Young. So far, this game has been exactly as advertised, although the Mariners strike first with 3 singles in a row. That is going to make it 1-0 2-0 as Wu is still holding it down, and the Mariners have a chance to extend their lead. As we've seen the entire series though, they don't do that, and the Yankees tie it up. Now the Mariners need anything, and there's an RBI from Andujar. Bryan Woo is still in the game, although he gives up another run, and now it's all down to the bullpen. With the 1-run lead, it is down to the 9th inning, and you've gotta be kidding me. With Game 5 on the line, Andres Munoz gives up another home run, but hold your horses. We walk it off. They're not gonna show me the celebration, but Taylor Ward sends us to the ALCS. I was getting flashbacks to Houston last year, but in the end, we find a way to pull it off. However, the job is not done because we're going up against the defending World Series champs, and when I say this team is insane, I absolutely mean it. As we all know, Garrett Crochet is absolutely insane, but they've also kept Jarren Duran and Wilyer Abreu while Roman Anthony's sitting in AAA for some reason. Even though he's 93 overall, he has not taken an at-bat at the major league level. All I'm saying from this is MLB The Show really needs to fix their game because that's simply unacceptable. He's been on the trade block every single year, but if you're gonna move somebody, move Jarren Duran, not the guy you're paying $16.2 million a year to. Thankfully for us though, we don't have to face Anthony, but the rest of this team is gonna be an absolute nightmare. I think the only problem with this game is that we have Logan Gilbert on the mound instead of Bryan Woo, while they have Garrett Crochet, and that's because we played Woo in Game 7. Fortunately though, we do strike first with a run, and Logan Gilbert has been nearly perfect. As one of the longest tenured Mariners, he wants this more than anybody, but I guess I spoke too soon. He just gave up 3 runs in the 4th inning, and now it seems we're in serious trouble as the bases are loaded and we strand everyone. Then right after that, Vargas gives up a 2-run home run, and Seattle loses another Game 1. Just like the Mariners offense in real life, this has been really frustrating to watch, although they do tie the game in the 1st inning. However, George Kirby is giving up so many runs, but the offense just keeps clapping back. They are not done, but for whatever reason, George is getting lit up. That is going to make it 3-2, but here comes Jorge Polanco with the solo shot, and this is still a very tight game in the 7th inning. We desperately need to score, and there's Taylor Ward right when we need them. Can Munoz close this out? He does. We really needed to win that one because now with Crochet and Luzardo out of the way, we definitely have the better pitching depth and win the next game 7-1. Facing Crochet in game number 1 was terrifying, but I definitely think we're the better team suited for a 7-game series. I also want to give a huge shout out to Luis Castillo, who honestly in real life is probably going to be traded by this point, but based on the numbers he's been putting up in game, he gave me no reason to move on from him. Now he's in a contract year looking to win the World Series with the Mariners, as that is a Cole Young grand slam. This was the offense's best game yet, as they scored 11 runs on 15 hits, and that included of course the Young grand slam along with 2 dingers from Taylor Ward. Seattle has grinded back and are now 1 win away from the World Series, and Canzone starts us out with a dinger off a Crochet. That is a huge deal, as Gilbert of course gives up the tying blast. Now we need the offense to do its thing once again, and right on cue, there's 2 more runs. It is now 4-2 after a big dumper home run, and all things considered, Logan Gilbert has done exactly what he needed to do, as a 2-run shot from Yandy closes this out. For the 2nd year in a row, the Seattle Mariners had the best record in baseball, and they just won their first pennant in franchise history. Just 2 years after the George Springer home run, they get their revenge against another AL East team and are going to the World Series. As I mentioned before though, we cannot celebrate just yet because the goal of the video is to win a World Series, and we are up against the true final boss of baseball. The Dodgers were the 2nd best team in baseball this year, and honestly I want to know how that's even possible considering they signed Tarek Skubal. He is 99 overall, teaming up in a rotation with Yoshi Yamamoto and Shohei Ohtani. I think that's my worst nightmare. There's no doubt in my mind that this is the only rotation in Major League Baseball that even comes close to ours, and I would say they're much better. Then of course on offense, they still got Ohtani, they still got Will Smith, Freddie Freeman's like 70 years old, but he's still kicking it. And then after that, it's kind of the same faces that we've been seeing the past couple years. 2 years after overcoming a heartbreaking loss to the Blue Jays, the Mariners are now in the same position that the Blue Jays were in, as I'm recording this video right after the crazy 18-inning game against the Dodgers. For the sake of baseball though, I am really hoping the Blue Jays win that series, although the Dodgers just scored a run against us. This has been a really good game against Skubal, ball, but Bizzardo gives up a 2-run shot as Moncada saves us in the 8th. That is going to keep us in this game as we almost score another run, and we could very well be going to extras in game number 1. Just like against the Astros, I'm hoping for some sort of miracle, but we can't score in the 10th. I could be watching my second long inning game of the night, as I'm not even a Blue Jays or a Dodgers fan, but that took years off of my life. Now in the 11th though, we have our 3, 4, and 5 hitters, and there's 2 on for Diaz, who wins it. Cal started it off, and Yandy Diaz finished it as the Mariners go up 1-0. That is a huge statement to start the playoffs, but unlike other teams we've played, the Dodgers can actually match our pitching depth, and they tie the series in game 2. That will move the series to LA, and this is a huge game as Kirby has been struggling the entire playoffs. We need him to lock in more than ever as we load the bases and strand all of our runners, so it's still 1-0 with Ohtani on the mound, although Yandy Diaz saves us again. Thankfully after that, George Kirby is able to lock it in as we're unable to score runs again, but we are not getting punished for it as Diaz might be the World Series MVP. Just kidding, there's a Julio grand slam. After that, the Dodgers tried to rally, but it was just a little too much. After the game though, Dominic Canzone pulls his groin and we're forced to bench him, which kind of puts a wrench in our plans. So far in the playoffs, Canzone had been hitting .364 and was one of our best threats in the back half of the lineup. See, prior to his injury, Canzone was hitting .364, which was the best of anyone on the team aside from Brendan Donovan. That puts us in a really weird spot as Miguel Andujar moves to left field and Polanco becomes our DH. We're also going to move Brendan Donovan up to number 2 and just hope that the production does not fall off. While that is a hit to the offense, it's not as big of a deal as it could be, as we have a chance to go up 3-1 with Brian Wu going up against Skubal. As expected, both pitchers are playing out of their minds as it is 0-0 in the 5th inning. There's a very good chance that the first team to score could win this game, and it's still scoreless in the 8th. With 2 on though, the Mariners cannot come up with anything, so we could be going to extras. In the top of the 9th though, there's 2 guys on board for pinch runner Luke Raley, and the runner gets thrown out. Raley tried so hard to be the hero, but unfortunately it backfires for him because the runner was too slow to make it home. That means we're going to extras once again, and I'm really hoping this one doesn't go for 18. Both offenses as cold as ice. This could go on for a while, at least until Polanco clutches up. That is a 12th inning run as Moncada also drives him in, so Munoz is coming in to a 2-0 lead and starts out with 2 strikeouts. Now he's facing Ohtani, and while an intentional walk would have been the smart move there, that's an error. So now we're praying that Pages cannot score him. He strikes him out. It was scoreless until the 12th inning, but the Mariners score 2 runs and win the game. We are now just 1 win away from beating this Dodgers team, and a huge reason for that is that we were able to beat Skubal twice. If it was the other way around, we would be in a completely different situation. With a World Series on the line on the road, we're putting in our best healthy pitcher, Luis Castillo, who's going up against Tyler Glasnow. Early on, it's been a little bit sweaty with a couple doubles apiece, but no side is scored. That could change in the 5th inning though, as Diaz doubles, but gets thrown out before Hai-Sung Kim delivers the first run. Our offense laid an egg, allowing the Dodgers to get one back. So now going back to Seattle for game 6, the longest tenured remaining player on the Mariners, Logan Gilbert, has a chance to send this home. All of baseball knows there's pretty much no chance that we have the money to resign him, so this could very well be his last ride, and this would be an insane way to go out. We also cannot afford to let the Dodgers tie this up and take it to game 7, as blowing a 3-1 lead would be nothing short of embarrassing, and Logan Gilbert, you're killing the narrative. He was supposed to be the hero of this one, but instead he lets us down, although Donovan bails him out. It is 4-3 in the 5th inning, although the bullpen is in and gives up a run. We have 3 innings remaining to overcome a 2-run deficit, and just kidding, make that 4. Now I'm extremely nervous as we get one back, but I don't know if it's gonna be enough. We need a miracle, and that is just not coming, as of course we're going to game 7 in Seattle. Then with Yandy Diaz suffering an injury, I'm extremely nervous about this game. Fortunately though, at the same time, we get Dominic Canzone back, so here is the lineup going into game number 7, where we're once again gonna see Brian Wu versus Tarek Skubal. Facing and beating Skubal for the 3rd time is not gonna be easy, so we really need Wu at his best. All I can say is this is it. Their best versus our best, and honestly, Unfortunately, if the Mariners lose another elimination game, they might riot as Woo is not looking good. Dare I say, he's making me feel a little woozy as he gets 2 guys on, but gets out of the jam. Now we just need to score a run off of Scooball, and that is way easier said than done, although there we go, tying it up and taking the lead. That was a massive 3-run inning as the offense finally wakes up at the right time, and Andujar might have just won it. Now we need to hope that the bullpen can hold on, but it's a 4-run game, and clearly the baseball gods are on our side. We sim to the end of the game, Munoz closes them out, and the Mariners win a World Series against a loaded Dodgers team, keeping it close, but ultimately taking Game 7. That was one of the World Series of all time, and I really hope you guys enjoyed this rebuild. As always, please feel to comment down below what other teams I should rebuild, as I'm looking for off-season content to make, and I know just like me, a lot of you are just sad fans that want to see your teams win. Like, subscribe, and click right here to see more content.